Hi everyone and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to do a mini triangle box, and as usual you can get the schema and cut files in on the blog, on my blog, which is linked in the description down below. So this is actually, the size of it is made to work with a 6x6 pattern paper. However, I realized that I didn't have anyone that was kind of nice enough that I really wanted. So I'm making my own pattern paper. I'm going to do a smooching technique that I really like doing in 2016. I did a lot of cards with this background. And because of that, I also have a video where I go through a couple of different watercolor cardstocks that work for this technique. My favorite one is the Montevol Canson, I think. Montevol cardstock. It's 100% cotton, and this specific one is 200 GSM. It comes in 200 GSM and 300 GSM. For this little box, I would recommend going with the 200 GSM. So the smooching technique is very simple. You push your pad down to your inking surface, and then you spray some water to get it moving. The first layer you want more water, less ink, just to get it kind of flowing and kind of push into it so that you get some kind of coverage. I really like having a little bit of white, but if you don't like it, you want to have a little bit more water than I use. The second layer, I pick up the rest of the ink, like the little ink blobs, to get like this splatter pattern or the blob pattern. I really love the blob pattern. I didn't feel that I had enough of those little extra textures, so what I did was I kind of pushed down my ink pad once again, and then I added just a little bit smaller water, and I used those little splatter thingies. Droplets, that's the word, droplets. You can very much use the rest of the ink on separate papers just to use it up. I dry it off when I make videos because it's quicker. I also use the same inks, which are Tattered Rose and dried Marigold, in some Oxide inks to kind of build up upon it. Remember, these are distress inks, so if you use too much water, you will just reactivate the ink and things will blend. So you want to use less and less water with your ink. After doing the splatters with the Oxide ink, I'm going to go in with some just normal distress inks in the color Tattered Rose, dried Marigold, spiced Marmalade, and Espresso, ground Espresso. So for the Tattered Rose, the dried Marigold, and the spiced Marmalade, I am using a size 4 brush, I think it is, to get these little bigger splatters on top of it. Again, it's to bring texture to it, to kind of make it, I don't know, I like it, just adding more and more texture. The splatter helps with texture and also helps breaking up big blobs of color. So I continue doing that, and it's very easy. I just press my ink pad on top of a acrylic block. I add a little bit of water, mostly just for it to be a little bit runny. And then I just mix in as much ink as possible because I want to have a kind of a potent splatter. And for the last part, for the ground espresso, I use a size 2 brush because I get smaller splatters and I don't want the ground espresso to take over. I just want it to give that little bit of extra texture. Then I'm going to score everything. I score at 3 inch on the 6 inch line, and then on the 3 inch lines I just mark the 1.5. You can use a pen or you can just use a scoreboard. Then I line up that little mark in the middle together with the score line across the 6 inch part to make these little triangles. If you have a hard time seeing here, there is a schema on the blog that really shows how I line everything up and all the dimensions that I have. And then I just score down on all sides so I get 2 triangles basically. Or there are 3 triangles because you have the border triangles, but anyhow. And I used to fold them and burnish the edges, and this is how the little box will look. But to keep it together, you're gonna need to tie it together to kind of close that little hole that ends up being in the box. So I'm using a hole punch. I punch a hole where I think I need it, then I fold it together and I mark for that hole on the other side so that they line up. I then kind of eyeball where I want to, or I draw a little line, a little bit eyeballing, a little bit using the grid, where I want the other hole on the other side. And on the other side, I also do mark the last little triangle that I push my little hole punch in. To close it up, this is where you should have added the things into your box if you want any box. I'm gonna just, I cut out so the ribbon is a little bit thinner, it's easier to get it through the holes, and then I just line up all the holes and push the ribbon through. Sadly that is out of the camera, but you know, sometimes that happens. I push the ribbon through and then I'm gonna just tie a simple bow. I'm not super good at tying bows, so I tied a knot and then a bow. The knot helps the box stay together while I tie the bow. And to finish that, I'm just gonna cut off the edges. I actually keep it on the roll while I'm doing this, mostly because then I don't have a lot of like pieces that I can't use afterwards. For the decorations, we're gonna start with some little birdies. This birdies are actually retired. I think they're super cute. I wish they still were in the store, but they aren't. However, any stamp set with little birdies will work, or any stamp set at all. You can use, like, you can take this idea and then make it completely your own. But I really liked this little stamp set and I just wanted a little small bird. So for the coloring, I have been using the same color scheme this whole week. So again, it's R01, RV42, and then R02. That is my shading. It is very soft and very, like, it's just comfortable coloring. And for the beaks, I think I'm using like YR21 or 23 or something like that. Just a very light orange. To finish this off, I just cut it out with my scissors. You can use dies if the stamp set you are choosing to use have dies. I think this had dies. I just don't buy the coordinating dies because I want to afford all of the stamps. Now I'm gonna put this together. I have a few things left to do before I put that little bird. One is to have a stamp set. This is Itty Bitty Celebrations. I really like this little stamp set. By the way, all the products that isn't retired are linked in the description down below. So I'm going to heat emboss this on some Neenah in white because we are going to do some blending on top of this. So I'm just using my Versamark as usual. Versamark is my favorite embossing ink. It is very, very sticky, so it works really, really good. I did pre-prep the material with my embossing buddy or embossing brush just to remove all static. After I heated everything up, this is after I heated it up, I use my Tattered rose to kind of tie everything together, just blending on top of it to get this little, not a flag, because I'm just gonna have this across the box like that, just across the box. I'm kind of looking, should I do a flag or should I do anything? And then nah, I just cut off the little white part to make it a little bit easier to do. So yeah, this is how I want it to sit. And then we're gonna add birdie. This is where I kind of decided that I just wanted the flying birdie and that would be enough. But I did want some more details. I'm gonna use these little flowers. So I actually did this box previously but in the wrong size, so it didn't close properly. So I have cut out a couple of flowers out of that sheet, so it has basically the same colors and same dotting, but I wanted to have a few more that was a little bit contrasting. So I'm using again the dried marigold, the tattered rose, and then I'm going in with a little bit of worn lipstick. And the worn lipstick actually going on with the little like blending brush to do, because I didn't want it as strong as it would be with a blending tool. So I just went in with the brush there. And then I'm going to give some dimension to all of my flowers. So this is basically the same way. Watercolor cardstock is pretty forgiving. If you want it to not bend as much, you can actually spray it with a little bit of water when you do the dimension. And it will be a little bit nicer to you. And then I do the same with the leaves. I'm just pushing in at the bottom, and then I kind of move across the leaf to give it that dimension. And these little leaves have a little slit, so that opens up a little bit, and I kind of like that effect. So I went through all of the leaves and did the same thing. Again, I always do more than I need. So I have this little box where I have so many different things, and I'm planning to use them on my art journals so that I don't need to kind of color specific things for my art journal, just use up the rest of the supplies or the rest of the colored images and things I've cut out. So I'm gluing everything down just straight on the box. I don't want to have any extra dimension. The flowers do have a little bit of dimension. I dip flowers into the ink. If you saw my little card kit video, these flowers and leaves comes from that card kit. I just dip them into the glue. It's enough to hold them. I haven't had anything fall off from any of my little projects. And here you see how I have like contrasting leaves to the flowers. I have a little yellow flower, and then I have a little bit of a darker yellow, which is the dried marigold. The blending makes it much, much darker than the kind of smooching technique. So here you get it tone in tone without having to use a separate ink. And then I decided to go with a couple of pink flowers. And with the pink flowers, I'm going in with the pink little leaves, just to get them kind of popping. Again, as I have blended. Well, in this case, I've used worn lipstick because the lightness of the Tattered Rose kind of didn't give the pop I wanted. So a little bit of worn lipstick, but just using the brush nib to not get it too dark, worked really, really good. And to finish off, I'm going to have a teeny tiny flower up by the bird, kind of like it is holding it in its nib, like a peace dove. Is it that? Like a little white dove has that little branch in their mouth. To finish it off completely, I'm going to use this Shimmering Rose drops, crystal drops by Tonic, one of those that I had in my stash. So I'm just adding it in the middle with little dots, and that is the finished box. Well, I'm gonna cut off the little flag ends. I'm just lining up my scissors with the end of the box and cutting it off, and there is the box done. I hope you like this video. If you do, please thumbs it up. It means a lot to me. If you have any questions, just comment down below, and down below you find all the details and the link to my blog where the schema and cutting files for this are. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you later. Bye!